Hello everybody, how are you guys doing? This is Rob of Rule of Two Review. Welcome back to the channel, and I am back after a few days break from making YouTube videos, and I want to revisit the biggest and most exciting upcoming game, The Legend of Zelda Tears of the Kingdom. And what I want to talk with you guys about more today is the curious situation around the marketing for Tears of the Kingdom, which is a growing topic around on the internet, and it is a growing point of concern for a lot of folks. I, of course, have touched on it on a couple of videos from a couple of different angles. But specifically, as we get closer and closer, less than 2 months away from the release of the game, I want to talk about if their current decision to be pretty vague and mysterious with a lot of their marketing is actually going to help or hurt the game in the eyes of a lot of people. It should be noted, and something I want to get out before I dive any deeper into this topic, that really there is no right or wrong way to feel about this exact topic. What I'm wanting to do today is just share my own personal perspective and my own personal opinion on the idea. Whether or not the game is going to be a sales success is probably moot, because I think we know that regardless of the controversy around the price and regardless of the debates around their marketing decisions, the game is going to sell well for itself no matter what. Whether or not it sells more or less than Breath of the Wild is yet to be determined. The install base of the Switch is obviously in this game's favor, but there are reasons why it still might not end up selling more than Breath of the Wild, because there were different things in favor for that game when it released at the launch of the Switch back in 2017. So there's a bunch of fun things to discuss. I've got some ideas and some stances here that I'm excited to share with you guys and then see what you think about it. Now, I don't really bring this stuff up in my videos anymore, and I don't plan on doing it long term, but right now I do just want to let everyone know I am currently on a fast track course to finally cross 20,000 subscribers on the channel here. This year represents my 10th year doing YouTube. As I've said before, I am clearly not a very fast growing channel, and I was apparently never meant to be a fast growing channel, which is a little sad, but at the end of the day, it's still okay, and I am proud of what I've built so far with the channel, and I just love talking to you guys about gaming stuff and Nintendo and Metroid and Zelda and all of that. So, if you're new to the channel and you seem to like what I'm doing and how I present my thoughts in this video, then I sure hope you will consider subscribing to the channel to help me cross that 20K milestone sooner than later. So we all know the situation and the debates going on out there around the marketing for Tears of the Kingdom. Like I said, I've made a couple of videos touching on different elements about this myself. And I'll remind you guys my personal stance. While I understand why some people are frustrated with the lack of marketing, and even I would like to see even more than they've showed, I'm personally not bothered by it. I think I understand what Nintendo is trying to do by balancing the vagueness of the game while also still trying to get people excited about what's going to be new in the game. It does create mystery in the heads of all of us who are excited for the game. Some people obviously get frustrated with that. And while I understand why it makes people frustrated, I still just don't really care, because personally, I think this game is going to be incredible. I think it has a chance at being better than Breath of the Wild, and I'm so excited for the sky, which I always bring up in my conversations about this game. I am just so quaking in my boots with excitement about what the sky element can offer to the gameplay and the world of Hyrule and Breath of the Wild, or at least this version of Zelda, I should say, that regardless of the lack of really in-depth marketing so far, I just have no doubts about the quality of this game, so I don't mind what they've been doing so far. But this is where we come back to why some folks are a little bit frustrated with what Nintendo's doing, and that's where we start to ask the question, okay, can this mystery potentially hurt the game in the eyes of a lot of people? And might it even affect sales to a few degrees? And the reason I think the sales might be impacted is because Nintendo is doing two things that in some ways hurts the perception of this game, okay? I'm not talking about the end result quality of the game. As I just said, I think it's going to deliver, and more so. Like, I just know it's going to be amazing. But there's a combination of two things that I think, from a public perception standpoint, maybe works against the game in the eyes of some people out there. And it's the fact that the game is so mysterious and we're not sure how different of a world Hyrule is going to be from the last game. And the fact, I gotta talk about it, the fact that they're charging $70. This is the first time in the Switch era that they're adding $10 to the price of a Switch game. And I think that that's a very tricky line that they're balancing, right? I don't mind, and I'm going to buy the game for $70 because if I've been willing to do it for a couple of PS5 games, and I think this game is going to be worth the $70, I don't mind doing it. However, I also agree with the people who don't feel comfortable with it. Maybe I shouldn't say I agree. It's more that I understand why people don't feel comfortable with it, and one thing I do agree with is that the Switch, the current 2017 hardware Switch, I don't care about the size of the cartridge a game is being put on. This is not the tech and the hardware and the console generation, in my opinion, to kind of test the $70 price point, right? I think they're trying to just prepare everyone for a price increase with the Switch 2 that I think is coming sometime soon. But I don't know if this was the right way to do it. They probably would have been better served by just waiting until the Switch 2 came out and starting to charge $70 for some games that justify it on the next generation platform. But that's not what they're doing. They're using the newest Zelda game that is going to sell like crazy to finally test the $70 price point. And the fact that they're doing it while keeping the game mysterious and not explaining why it's so different from Breath of the Wild, I think adds to the frustration some people have when they perceive what to expect from this game. Now, the good news, or I should say, hopefully the good news, is that we are still within time for Nintendo to surprise us with the thing that we all want and kind of expect, which is a big blowout of this game, most likely in the form of a Nintendo Direct, right? Some kind of Zelda Tears of the Kingdom focused Nintendo Direct presentation, probably somewhere in the range of like 20 to 40 or so minutes. And if they do that, like I personally think they will be doing, that is probably going to assuage a lot of the fears and concerns a lot of folks have. Those who have a very stalwart opinion on the pricing probably won't have their minds changed, but everyone else who's kind of on the fence or concerned that maybe they haven't seen enough to feel like they want to buy this game, regardless of price, that Nintendo Direct, or, as I've discussed, my desired Nintendo Treehouse, if they do something like this for this game, that I think is going to be that final piece of marketing that a lot of people who are concerned about this game feels like is missing. And we can't forget that Nintendo, man, for all of their faults and all of the dumb things they do out there, they are really good at marketing. When they decide to flip that switch and turn their marketing machine on to maximum potential, they can achieve basically anything. Two great examples in the past couple of years is the first Splatoon on the Wii U and its Metroid Dread on the Switch. If we go back to when Splatoon came out on the Wii U, I want to say that was 2015, right? I think a year, maybe 2 years before the Switch came out. So it was pretty far into the life of that console, and we know it didn't do very well. But the first Splatoon game, which was a new IP on Nintendo's least successful home console of all time, as amazing as it is, we all know it was not a sales success in any stretch of the imagination, but a brand new IP was able to sell on a console that only sold 14 million units in its entire life. It sold in the range of 5 million copies, okay? Essentially more than a third of the install base purchased a brand new IP in Splatoon. That is an unimaginable achievement. If you really put the numbers and the ratio into context of, games sold to consoles sold, and again, for a new IP, it's unfathomable. And I personally attribute that to their incredible marketing around that game at the time. And again, we know that Nintendo's marketing maybe wasn't the best during the Wii U era, and you could even argue it's one of the many reasons why the console didn't succeed in the sales market as much as it should have, because Nintendo kind of didn't really understand the identity of the console. They didn't even understand their own identity enough to market it properly. But when it came to Splatoon and a few other games that were very successful, they achieved that success. And the fact, again, if it was a Zelda game or a Mario game or even a Metroid game or something, it would have made more sense for it to be successful. But Splatoon was a brand new, unknown quantity. It was multiplayer focused. It was like this shooter paint thing. At the time, it was a very weird game. Now we know it to be incredible. But at the time when it was new, it was very strange. And they sold 5 million copies on a 14 million selling Wii U. It's incredible, and I attribute that partly to the quality of the game and partly to their incredible marketing. Metroid Dread is also in a similar situation. I think there were more things working in favor of Metroid Dread, to be fair. One is the massive success and popularity of the Switch itself. The other is the fact that Metroid is a long-running, famous, high-quality franchise. Even though it's never been the biggest selling franchise, it still has a very strong legacy that Splatoon didn't have. And so those two things did aid in Metroid Dread becoming a big success. But on top of that, Nintendo also marketed the hell out of that game. They revealed it perfectly in a Nintendo Direct during E3 that created huge buzz. They had incredible trailers. They had an overview trailer. They had a history of a Metroid Dread development trailer. And they had tree houses. And they also had the Metroid Dread reports that they were releasing online and marketing it very heavily on Twitter. And all of these things combined made that game the best-selling Metroid game in history. 35 years of history, it did that in only 6 months. That, to me, along with Splatoon, is the power of Nintendo's marketing. And so now, take that concept and the strength of that marketing and apply it to one of the biggest franchises in the history of the entire video game industry, The Legend of Zelda, on Nintendo's best-selling home console of all time, the Nintendo Switch. And there's no reason to think that if they decide to really turn their marketing juice on in April and give us a Nintendo Direct or another really, really thorough trailer or a treehouse or whatever they may decide to do, then they will show the world exactly why Tears of the Kingdom is going to be better than Breath of the Wild, is going to be a bigger game that justifies its price, and is going to be incredible and maybe even the best-selling Zelda game of all time. Obviously, the jury is still out on the fine details, but to reiterate things I brought up in my prior Zelda theory videos, I think that what they're doing with the sky, and even IG Aonuma's recent comments about how the gameplay is going to change the world and there's a new Hyrule and all that stuff just further confirms to me that there are elements to the game that is changing the location of Hyrule and maybe the topography of the map. And if there are underground caverns to kind of explore, like it kind of seems like there will be, they're clearly adding a lot to this game that's going to change up the experience from Breath of the Wild. And so, again, we need to learn truly how different it's going to be, and then we need to play the game to really learn how different it is. But I just don't see a world where there isn't a lot of surprises around the corner for this game, and it's up to Nintendo to show and tell the world what they're doing. So, until Nintendo decides to maybe do something unique, like a Nintendo Direct or something, there are those people that have enough concerns that they may wait and see if the game is really worth it. They might not yet be ready to buy into it on day one. But I think, for the most part, most people are ready to buy this game on day one and are excited for it. I think that even though it's a little frustrating that we've only had 4 teasers and trailers and whatnot and not a whole lot of gameplay, I do think that what we've seen is exciting. It shows me that I can trust Nintendo's Zelda development and that I think they are introducing enough new elements that it's going to blow us away and justify its existence as a sequel. Whether or not it justifies the price, the jury is out on that as well. Maybe even I learned that the price wasn't justified by the time I play it, but I don't really think that's the case. It's Zelda, man. I mean, look what they did with Breath of the Wild, and then they spent, so many years, it's 6 years before the sequel comes out in Tears of the Kingdom. They clearly spent enough time on this game, even if we were to buy into this idea that it started as DLC, which they basically did tell us that's the case, actually. So even that doesn't matter to me, because I just think that they spent the time to craft a really perfect sequel. And I don't know. I think this game is going to be amazing. I hope they turn the marketing on in April so that more people can feel satisfied and we can hopefully put this debate behind us. So we'll have to wait and see what's in store for us next month.